pulling force, wherever it is greater is where water moves, so obviously water is moving into the blood, into the plasma. Now, if osmotic pressure was the same on each side of these membranes here, in each of these compartments, water's not moving. The osmotic pressure difference is going to drive the movement of water. That is, if we're what, by the way? Start with the P. Permeable. Believe it or not, there are certain areas of your body, salivary glands, areas of your kidneys, where water is impermeable. It's very rare, but it happens. Next semester, I'm going to tell you how you make spit, and part of making spit is part of the salivary gland being impermeable to water. If it's not, your spit isn't made properly. I'll tell you how your kidneys regulate other stuff, and in order for them to do it properly, there are certain areas of your kidneys that have to be impermeable to water. Okay, so water is no different than any other molecule in your body when it comes to what we discussed earlier, gradients, permeability. Okay, so given that I have water moving across this membrane here, this blood vessel, from one compartment to the next, it's permeable. So we're just going to assume that it is. But I just wanted to remind you that we need permeability. Okay, regardless of gradients. All right? So far, so good? Just trying to do that. Oh yeah, we're good. Okay, so far, fairly straightforward. And what we've drawn is this. This is what we distribute. Boom. That's what we distribute in that picture. All right? Now, when it comes to osmotic pressure, when it comes to solute concentration, actually solute concentration, we can measure it. We can measure solute concentration, and when we do, these are the terms that we use. Now, because when it comes to the fluids in our body, be it plasma, be it intracellular fluid, be it lymph, be it interstitial fluid, it's very dilute. Our fluids are at a maximum, maybe 93% dilute, or at a minimum 93% dilute. Most of them are about 98, 97%, meaning 97, 98% of the fluids in your body, most of them, water. Okay, plasma is about 93-ish. That's really diluted. Most of the fluids in your body are mostly water. And so because of that, we can actually use these terms interchangeably, because the values are nearly equal in a dilute fluid. Now, if we were a chemist and we had a beaker and we were making solutions that were 25% dilute, that goes out the window. The values will be very different. All right? So, in a clinical sense, when we talk about the body, this is human anatomy and physiology, we can use these words interchangeably because their values would be nearly identical. I typically use the word osmolality. Not that that makes me better than anybody else, not that that makes me more correct than anybody else, because there are labs that use the word osmolarity. It doesn't matter. Whenever you see either one of those two, you know it's a measured value. Measured value of what? Solute concentration. When I had x equals 100 and x equals 10 and y equals 20 and y equals 50, I was talking about osmolality. That's what those numbers meant earlier on in the lecture tonight. That's what it meant. The number tells you how concentrated a particular fluid is. Okay, solution or colloid. You know, words I can use freely, right? Okay? So, I don't care if you know the units. What you'll normally see on the exam is when I write osmolality, I will have, instead of instead of all this, osmoles of solute per liter, osmoles of solute, kilogram of solute, I'll have something that resembles, I'll have this or this, but I'll get rid of the kilogram or the liter of solution, and you'll see this. It's milliosmolars, okay? That's what you'll see in a lab that you send off when somebody has blood work done. And the lab gives you the value for the concentration of sodium. You'll see this as a unit, okay? So when you see this, I'm talking about osmolality, okay? Unit of osmolality or osmolarity, doesn't matter. Again, we can use them interchangeably, okay? And those of you that take chemistry, and everybody here should have, you know this. You know what I'm talking about. So again, it's a concentration value. So now we can add to this story here, osmolality. And so let's make sure we understand again what it is. Osmolality, or polarity I should say, is a measured value. Value of solute concentration. I could have put the word osmolarity there. All right? It's a, just like again, height and weight. Measured values. All right? And it directly correlates with osmotic pressure and obviously solute concentration. So now we can add something to these words right here. Is that, if I had some foresight, you know what, I'll just write it again. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to write it again so it doesn't get too messy. Okay? So we're going to do this. As we increase solute concentration, okay, we have an increase in osmolality, which is the measured value for that. You can say that something has an increase in solute concentration, but until you measure it, you don't know exactly what it is. You can say that someone's tall, but until you measure them to be 6'8", you don't know exactly how tall they are. And so that's what osmolality does for us. And osmolality is very important clinically because there are normal homeostatic ranges for osmolality that you will have to know like the back of your hand forever from this point forward. Again, most of you. So increase in osmolality, increase in solute concentration correlates to an increase in osmotic pressure. So all three of those things are going to be in parallel with each other. As they go up, they all go. As one goes up, the other two are going up. And for the sake of thoroughness, obviously, we're always thorough here. As solute concentration goes down, osmolality, the measured value, will be smaller, and we'll have a decrease in osmotic pressure. Okay, so there's a direct correlation between all three of those things. Okay? Now, you have to know the normal value for osmolality in the body, specifically the blood and other places as well. So blood osmolality, although this would hold true for intracellular osmolality in most places, that's why I say initially blood. Because from one cell to another, depending on where we are in the body, it can be slightly different. But for right now, I want you to know normal blood osmolality. So if you take blood from a particular patient and the osmolality of that blood is measured, you should be within a normal range of between 280 to 300. That's the normal range. That is a homeostatic range. That is the range that will help ensure homeostasis within the body. You have to know that. All right? And it's in your notes. Okay? That's here. Boom. All right? Now what? Before we get on to the stuff that you're going to teach me, because we have all this knowledge behind us now, we're going to talk about one more thing, tonicity. People get tonicity and osmolality mixed up all the time. Don't. Tonicity is not a measured value. Osmolality is, tonicity is not. Tonicity is luminescence. Tonicity is comparing the osmolality between two different fluids. That's what tonicity, you cannot say that the tonicity of this patient's blood is 300 milliosmolars. You can't say that. That would be wrong. That doesn't exist. Okay? If we had to make an analogy here, tonicity would be, if you're talking about somebody's height, you can say that this person's taller than them. You know how tall they are? No, but you know that one of them is taller than the other. I'm comparing two different people. That's what tonicity is doing. You can use these tonicity terms, hypertonic, isotonic, hypertonic, if you are comparing two different compartments or two different fluids. It's the only time you can use these. All right? You are comparing the osmolality of two different compartments or fluids. So let's move through this, and then we're going to get to the stuff where you teach me. All right, so I'm going to pick, let's go lift vessel. I haven't picked that one in a while. There's a lift vessel. And obviously this is the interstitial compartment. So there's fluid here, there's lymph here. Now, we're going to measure the osmolality of both of these fluids. And I'm going to measure this one to be 290. I'm going to measure this one to be 290. So there is no difference in osmolality between these two fluids, between these two compartments. And so because of that, we say that the lymph is isotonic to the interstitial fluid. We say that the interstitial fluid is isotonic to the lymph. That tells you that the osmolalities are the same. All right? By the way, which way is water going to move? Into the lymph, out of the lymph, into the interstitial fluid, and out, in. No net movement, right? Because the osmotic pressures is the same, correct? Because the solute concentration is the same. I'm giving you the value here. So, we have an isotonic, by the way, what's iso mean? Same. It's the same osmolality from one compartment to the next. Okay? I'm going to draw one picture to take care of the other two. So no net movement of water when we have an isotonic scenario. I'll go cell this time just because I want to. So that's a cell. Let's draw some, you know what, we don't need the dots. I'm going to give the cell an osmolality of, let's get all nutty. Let's get above what's normal, because sometimes that can happen. And out here, I'm going to be 300. Even though that's a normal osmolality, given within our range, it doesn't matter because I'm comparing it to something else. All right? So, in this particular case, what we can do here is we can write two things and it's saying the exact same thing. We can say, and obviously, where are we more concentrated? Inside the cell or in the interstitial fluid? We're more concentrated where? Inside the cell. So, if we're comparing osmolality, and it's in a compartment where it is higher, that compartment is said to be hypertonic to the other compartment. So we can write this here, is that we can say the cell is hypertonic to the interstitial fluid. Or interstitial space, whatever you want to say. We can, at the same time, and it would be saying the exact same thing, or the interstitial fluid is obviously more dilute, is hypotonic to the cell. Those two sentences say the exact same thing and tell you the exact same scenario. That within that cell we're more concentrated, that outside that cell we're less concentrated. By the way, which of these has a higher osmotic pressure? Within the cell, right? Because solute concentration is higher. So we have a higher osmotic pressure. So on the exam, I don't have to talk about solute concentration. I don't have to talk about osmolality. I can on the exam say that intracellularly osmotic pressure is higher than it is in the interstitial fluid. Where are we hypertonic? I can say that, can I not? Because you can tie tonicity to osmolality. Indeed you can. Osmolality to solute concentration, right? And solute concentration to osmotic pressure. So I don't have to necessarily use osmolality values to ask questions about tonicity on the exam, because we have the ability to critically think. Okay? You with me? So given that we have a higher osmotic pressure inside of that cell and a lower osmotic pressure outside the cell, inside higher, outside lower, obviously, which way is water going to move? Right? Water moves wherever there is a higher osmotic pressure, correct? Yes? So water moves toward hypertonic fluids. Water moves away from hypotonic fluids. So we're hypertonic in here, and we're hypotonic out here. Water moves away from hypotonic. Why? Because we have a lower osmotic pressure.